Hi, Allison. How
Hey,
are you today? I can't say good morning because we're not doing it early today, but it has been a lovely day today.
yeah, we're afternoon today, and what's weird is for the first time in quite some time, our weather is gorgeous, and I am sitting here inside. So we're
I
gonna
know.
have some fun because otherwise it's just not gonna be worth it because it's 70 and sunny, and tomorrow it's tornadoes. So we're gonna sit here and have some fun, and then I'm gonna go walk the dog. I will tell you, very funny story. I have some friends who, everybody's got these bucket lists of things they want to do, right? And so she asked us a little while ago if we could do this thing with her. And I pretty much will almost always say yes to everything. And so on yesterday, we went to the roller rink. We went roller
Oh,
skating. And it's probably the first time since I was about 12 or 14. And I will tell you, I have no casts on. I didn't sprain anything. I didn't break anything. Pictures were taken. And this is one of those instances where you don't need to share everything on social media. Some things should stay private, even for us photo managers. But it was really fun. It's been quite the joke around the house for the last week or two as to whether I would break a bone or sprain an ankle or whatever. And I may or may not have been run over by like 5-year-olds. But it was very fun. It was very fun. So I
gosh,
can now add that to my list of things that I have done as an adult that do not need to be done again.
yeah, yeah. I went ice skating not too long ago for the first time in a while, and my ankles barked at me for a while
Yeah.
because that's something that you need to have really sturdy when you're
Yeah.
ice skating. Roller skating is a little different because it's got four little wheels, and if you're kind of more perpendicular to the ground, it's easier.
Yeah, but it's much easier to fall backwards on roller skating. Don't ask me how I know that. I've been skating more often because I have a kid who plays hockey. So I've been on the ice and I find ice skating much easier.
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Well, it's more what I'm used to, but I had
Yeah.
totally forgotten that on roller skate. So if anyone out there is
You
thinking
got to
about doing
lean
it, you
forward.
got to lean forward
Yep.
because you will fly right back on
Yeah.
your butt.
Yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you're okay. That's number
I
one.
am
And I'm
here.
glad that you
Yep.
had fun and you can count that as a
I will.
check off your bucket list.
I am checking that out. It never really was on my bucket list, but
Well, it was
it
on
is.
somebody's.
It has been checked off now.
Checked off and filed away.
I know, and it was in this like weird cement building that looked like some kind of war bunker. And then you go in, and they weren't even playing really good 80s music, which
Oh,
is
well, that's
kind of what
like,
I was expecting, because roller skating. But apparently, roller skating is has come back in full force and is a thing now. And instead, they were playing some techno pop, which I don't love.
there is,
And I know we
yeah.
put in a few music requests, and we thought they would play them when they had the couple rounds of this song is only for the old people, which is when we went out. Technically, they said adults, but
Yeah.
we all know what they went. But they still didn't even. They played like one ABBA song that was kind of fun, but the rest of it not so great.
See,
But it
see,
was
that's
fun.
almost a requirement to get back into the disco,
I know
music.
there was no disco.
Oh my God.
Like,
You're going to have to give them a poor review for that.
well, I'm also not 10 and having my birthday party there, so I'm not sure I'm their real clientele. I don't think that I'm the people, and I have no young children either, so I don't think they're the people that are, I am not the person they're trying to attract. Um,
Understood. Yeah.
yeah, but it was fun. It
Yeah.
was interesting. And it
Well,
was,
that's the best part.
yes, those
Well,
photos will not be going into a photo book. I will put
well,
it that way.
yeah, but there's somewhere. Maybe I can coerce you to share them when we're at conference. That'll be fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah, well, as we mentioned before, we clicked record here and started our live podcast recording. I'm getting ready for a nice little vacation before uh, conference. So, um, this time next week, I will be somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, sailing away on a ship to the Southern Caribbean. So that'll be
Nice.
lovely. So
Yeah.
we're trying to slip this recording in before I go, and then we'll be off to our conference in Boston this year. So I'm very
Yeah,
excited for
except
that.
I'm not going. So I thought I told you that. I'm not going to be
Oh,
there.
I
No, yeah.
can't recall everybody who's told me they're
Yeah.
not
No,
going,
I
but
can't be there. And I'm totally bummed about it, but I can't be there because my son is a senior in college and he is a game design major and he has a gaming showcase every year and it is on the weekend of conference. So I
okay.
missed it last year. Um, the other years I've been able to go because they didn't line up properly, but last year and this year they're the same weekend and he's a
Yeah.
senior, so families first.
Yeah. No,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I'm kind of bummed. My
Well,
hometown too. I mean, that is where I grew up. But I will not be there.
okay. Well, you'll be missed. You'll have to catch the virtual, as they say.
I will, I'm sure I will hear all the dirt.
So let's get on with our
Yep.
special guest. It's so nice to bring on Shanna, and she is from Canada. Shanna, come on and say
Yeah,
hello.
she's gonna talk to us in part two about photo books.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's so lovely to have you join us. I'm a fan of your uh, just your company. I love the ginger snaps. So
Yeah.
cute. So go ahead and tell us a
Thanks.
little bit about yourself and your business and when you got into all this.
Okay, so I launched Ginger Snaps early 2020. It was a home from work because of COVID time gap that allowed me to kind of work on my website and my certification. And previous to that, I was working for like a print company, and I managed their photo products department. So I was kind of on the back end of the photo books and the design sites and the printing and the production, and so that kind of gave me an interesting perspective going into now this end of photo books. And so yeah, I live in Ontario in Canada. We live on a farm with my husband and my two sons who are getting older. They're 20 and 22. So one is moving out this summer and probably the other one's not too far behind, I wouldn't think. And they all love to be outside and farming and equipment, and they're in the trades. And I love my office and technology and photos. And we're very different that way. But yeah, we have a lot of fun things we like to do together too. But our work is very different from each other. So yeah, that's what I do. I love to work with people's photos. I love the organizing part of it. I love custom albums, but I also, right now especially, I'm really working with a lot of people in kind of coaching them in how to create their own photo books.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't know all that background stuff. So,
Hmm.
you were in the actual, down and dirty aspect of the physical creating of those books.
Yes,
Yeah, cool.
yes. Yeah, it's an interesting, I worked, like I wasn't working in the shop, but I worked for the print shop. And so to be able to walk back there and see, oh, how do they put those covers together? How do they glue the spines together? And it's an interesting perspective, yeah, to understand it's actual one-on-one work when it comes to photo books. It's manual for some of them, for
Uh-oh.
some of the different kinds of books. Anyway, yeah, it's an interesting background to have in what I'm doing now.
I'm sure it helps in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why do you think just having photo books is so powerful, especially emotionally in that way?
I find that now, because everything is just hiding on devices, photos are on phones and clouds that people can't access and computers that are full, and nobody is seeing and enjoying these memories anymore. So,
Or they're doing the death scroll?
yeah, the
Hmm.
death scroll, and then they get distracted and they never really find the one they're actually looking for. But when people open an actual book and you can just see the emotion in them right away that comes out, whether it's missing somebody or it's happy memories of, childhood or a celebration, whatever the book is that they're looking at, you can instantly see the emotion, and just having something that people can tangibly hold and look at and share and see bigger than a little phone screen. Just all of it just makes it, yeah, just I think those actual photos that you can still touch, prints or books, whatever it is, but there's just something about it. And maybe it's part of the nostalgia of it all, of those old photos that we find from years ago, and they're printed and you can feel them and look at them, and the book mirrors that. I just think it's special.
Well, we spent so many times and, growing up sticking those photos that we cared about into photo albums that were
Yeah.
sticky or you had to slide them in or whatever. And
Yes.
that's a way to create, you know, basically a photo book, except they
Hmm.
call it an album. But the long-term storage of that is usually not good or healthy for those photos, especially if,
Yes.
they're stuck in those uh sticky albums,
Yes.
because they're full of acid on the paper, and then it changes oftentimes the color of the photos, or you can't get them off, and then people tear them. So
Yes.
creating photo books of your special collections, I think is really a great way to do it. And then you're not
Mhm.
worrying about ruining the originals.
Hmm. And not only the safety of the photos, but the sheer size of those albums compared to you can
Yeah.
have five photo books on an album that take, or sorry, on a shelf that take up the same amount of space as one of those big albums.
Oh yeah,
So for sure,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you can make multiple copies,
yes,
for the
that.
two kids. So how do you go from the death scroll? I mean, we have gazillions of photos on our phones in our libraries. Most people don't even know what's there. So how
Yeah.
do you go from that to a book? How do you figure out what should go in it, and how do you find those particular, how do you narrow it down? Like how do you go from 5,000 photos down to a couple hundred that you might put in a book?
Yeah, so when you're working on a book, the very first thing you have to do is really focus in on what your theme is. So not, oh, I just want to make a book about, the last 5 years. Well, what does that really look like? Do you want to move down to kind of everyday life, or is it a relationship that you have with somebody over the last 5 years? You have to really niche down or focus in on what your theme is, and then you can really decide, does this photo actually contribute to this story, or is this is a great photo maybe, but this is not the place for it. So you have to really determine your theme first. And I always tell people, like, when it comes to curating your photos, either in general or for a project, a photo book or any other project, it's about being intentional about what stays and what goes. And you have to decide not whether the photo is good or technically good, but if it belongs. Does it belong in this book or in this story? And then when it comes to physically looking through your photos, you have to do a first sweep. And however you decide to file your photos, whether it's using your favorites button on your phone or you've created an album or a folder, you do a sweep and you pull out what you think you might be interested in. At that and pop them in that folder. You're still going to end up with way too many. So then you need to do it again, and you may even need to do it a third time. And when you do that, you can go through and you can remove and you can delete, and it is definitely okay to not use every photo. People feel this intense guilt when it comes to photos that they have to use every one, they can't delete any, they can't throw any out. And I'm not sure. I wish I knew exactly the psychology behind that. I guess somebody in our greater photo managers group might understand that. So we should find that out. But there's just some sort of a guilt that comes with getting rid of photos or not using every photo. And you just simply don't have to. You can delete. You don't have to use every one. Choose the ones that tell the story. Don't get hung up on them. Make your decision and move on.
And so just to clarify, when you're saying delete, you're just talking about the little collection that you're culling and you're reviewing. You're not talking about
Correct.
deleting, these copies in your library and so they'll be gone forever. You're just saying in the
Right.
scheme of developing your collection of images for this book, you can start out with a procured collection and then you rate them. Is that one of the tools you use? Do you suggest that people start, with the stars or the heart or, you know, things like
That
that?
might be some people's workflow, and you do have to find what works for you. That's not one that I use myself, but you pop all the ones. Yes, you're right, though, Susan. Pop all the ones that you want to use in an album, and then when you go through that the second time and the third time, feel free to remove them right back out of that album again.
Yeah.
They're not suitable for that book. Yeah,
I
and
actually think, I mean, if you're going to go through that work, I think there's actually a couple things. I think one, you can make that album, your first pass. So say there's 100 photos in your first pass, and there's something about those photos that you really like. So I actually
Mhm.
would think that it would be helpful for people to then create a second album. So maybe the first pass album is literally called, First Pass, and the second one is called Finals for Book,
Mhm.
because there's something about those photos you liked in the first place. So I think if you're going to go through the work of looking for things, you might want to keep those out
Mhm.
there so that you could
And that,
find them later. And I
yeah,
actually think
that's
part of the wanting to use every photo comes from the fact that you have to pay for X number of pages in your book. So you want to fill them as much as possible, which we'll get to too. But I think that's part of it, or thinking, I'm only going to make this one book and I don't want to lose that memory that's in that photo. So I am just going to stick it in there because then I always know I can find it again, which leads to a second issue we're not talking about today. But, if your library is fairly well organized, you're not going to lose it. But I do think that's the part of it is when you're
yes, and
looking,
that
you're, coming across cool things that you hadn't seen for a while and you don't want
mhm.
to forget them.
And it is a good idea to, like you say, to keep that kind of bigger for first creation.
Yeah.
Because then if you're, as you're designing your book, if you're in a layout and you feel like, oh, I could really use one or two more supporting photos
Hmm.
for this day or this event, or you can go back to that more
Yeah.
curated version if that's how you work. I do really find that people function in so many different ways.
Mhm.
So for you, that makes sense in your mind, and people will find their own methods as soon as you kind of dive in and try it. But yeah, certainly you can certainly keep things filed away in a few albums until your project's done, and then
Yeah.
you can remove those albums. Yeah.
I always keep my project albums, actually. I
Okay.
do it because digitally, half the time, when you go back and look for a photo of a certain event, I find that I do this, and most people that I work with do this, is they always pick the same ones to share again, or if they're
Yes.
going back to look. So I actually always keep that project album. I also think it's helpful if somebody says, if it's a travel book or something, and somebody wants to see some of those photos, you can literally just send them a link to that album,
Hmm.
because it's
Yeah.
Well,
there
and
digitally. Yeah,
another great tip is once it's in an album, you can easily create a slideshow or do anything else with
yeah,
it.
Hmm.
So
yeah,
it can have multiple purposes. So if you
You
can't
can.
fit all of your photos in a photo book, then you can always create a little movie, clip.
Sure.
How
Yes,
do you
absolutely.
help people? So, and you sort of touched on this, but you get your selection and you have your first pass, and then you have a group of, four or five similar photos. I have seen people agonize over, well,
Hmm.
which one? And they'll go back and forth and back and forth.
Hmm.
Which one do I keep? What tips do you have to help people, beyond just, is there one where everybody's eyes are open? Obviously
Right.
that's an easy part, but what's your thought on that?
There are definitely, and again, it kind of comes down to personality and how you function in projects like this, but some people are so what's the word? I don't know if it's more detail oriented, maybe not, but they get really, really hung up on this stage. This is where a lot of
Hmm.
photo book projects kind of stay stuck forever. So you really just have to go in with the mindset of I can't overthink this or I will never get through this. And if you have the four photos on your phone and they're all very similar, I know you were saying you go back and forth. You literally do. You have to go one and two, pick one, delete one, or remove it from the album, however we want to say that, and move on. And then it's one and three, which one's better? And then one and four. And you really just have to do it. You have to make a choice and you have to move on. And the other thing to tell yourself is a year from now or 10 years from now, or when my grandkids look at this book, are they really going to care that these three
No.
other photos aren't in here? Nobody's ever going to know or care. The moment is there, and you need to just pick it and you need to move on, or it really will never happen.
They
Yeah.
won't even know there's three other photos.
They won't ever even know.
Yeah. And
So,
they will thank you for just picking one.
and also when you have one on that page as opposed to four the same, the one will stand out so much more and be so much more meaningful than them looking through four photos that are almost identical. So the more you can kind of pare that down and choose the one photo that captures the moment, the more impactful it'll be.
Yeah. One of the things that drives me nuts is when you hand your phone to someone and you can't give them any guidance and you get your phone back and you have like 20 photos.
Yeah, yes.
There's that I forget it, some sort of insurance company, commercial. And, the guy is like, okay, don't be your parent. And he's like, okay, now everyone jump and everything. I don't know if you've ever seen that commercial. It
I haven't
cracks me
seen
up.
it,
It's like, whoa, I don't need that many photos.
Of course, you can have the opposite too. So, Susan and I were chatting before you came on about my roller skating incident
yes.
this weekend, or if you whatever you want to call it. And right at
Incident.
the beginning, we handed the phone. Somebody else handed their phone to somebody to take our picture, so we could proof of life that we were there and on roller skates. We should have known better. She handed it to some like 50 or 60-year-old guy, and he took one photo, which normally I like, but of course somebody's eyes were closed, and we were all
Oh,
like, you
yes.
should have given it to one of the 80 screaming teenage girls that are here
Yes.
because we would have had like 100, but we bet we would have had one with everybody's eyes open.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Well, we
honestly,
had,
it doesn't even matter. It's still a really cute photo.
yes. Well, we had a dinner not long ago, Allison. Yeah, you were there too. We were having a board meeting dinner, and it was a table full of photo managers.
Yeah,
And we asked the waitress to take our
I
photo
know.
on my
It's
phone and
funny.
got the phone back, and it was literally something like 32 photos or
There were
something.
Exactly.
so
And you could
many.
hear the rumblings around the table the whole time, like, oh no, she's still taking one.
And in like five different poses, which we all looked
Yes.
exactly the same. Yeah.
Anyway, she
Anyway,
thought she was helping, so that was great. Quickly
yeah.
deleted them and we moved on. But yes, yeah,
Yeah.
you
The
just
key
you
is
have to
actually
be
deleting those before they, sort of digress and go
yes,
into the role. Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
Uh anyway, so when you are deciding what to put in your book, and you touched on this a little bit, but what makes a photo book worthy? How what makes it a photo that should go in the book as opposed to in the death scroll?
I am all about the photo that tells the story, and I know technically great photos are beautiful and staged, perfect staging, perfect lighting. They're great and they're awesome to look at. But I guess it depends a little bit also on what your photo book is about. But if I'm picturing kind of an everyday photo book that everyday users will create, I'm not talking about photographers showcasing their work or anything like that. If it's everyday life, it just needs to tell the story. Maybe your kids aren't perfectly clean, or maybe somebody is actually looking away, but it's part of the story. To me, those are so much more important than the perfect lighting or the perfect background. Maybe the background's a little messy, but in 20 years, your family will look back and say, oh, remember that old green fridge in grandma's house? Or, whatever it was. So the everyday photos are so special in their own way. And you really just have to look at it and say, if you're creating the book and you look at a photo and you say, I have no idea what this is or what we were doing or where were we where it's a random field and a tree. I don't That's probably not a book that or a photo that needs to go in your book because if you don't know what it is, nobody's going to really understand what story that photo's telling. So again, it goes back to what I said before, where you're not looking for the photos that are in quotations good, but do they belong to the story?
So when you're talking about that, do you advocate for photo books that have captions and lots of text? What's your like 50-50 rule, on that? Like
Yeah.
50% text, 50% get
So you're asking somebody who hates the journaling part of photo books. Like I really dislike it.
Ooh.
So I know it's important. I know that. But I also want it to be practical for people. If you write 2023 on the cover of your book and it's clear that this is a 2023 book from everyday moments of your family, some books I have don't have any text. Sure, it would be cool to have some of those stories. And for those of you out there who love to write, that's awesome. For those of you out there like me who hate the writing part of it, get your photos out in print. Get done what you can get done.
Yeah.
There are plenty of books that I do for clients that have lots of text, and those are amazing. And you can look back and the stories are there and the details are there. Anything that you can pop in is great. So if I'm working on I don't know what example is, I'd say a vacation book, then I will put in, oh, this is the location we were at that day, or maybe a point of 5 things we did on our day in Rome or whatever it was. Try to put a little bit of detail in. If you're not into a lot of journaling, put a few bullet points. So at least you have something in there. Put a date, put a, you can get so creative with fonts. So you can have one kind of fancier font and it can list the place that you're at that day or the
Yep.
people that you're with. And then
Yep.
maybe you have kind of a more standard font where you list the 5 points from the day. And that's all you need. If you're into writing a full paragraph or you keep a journal every night, whatever that looks like for you, and that's what you want to add in, cool. Go ahead. Just don't feel pressured that you have to write all the time.
I
That's
wonder,
me giving everybody an out who wants to
Yeah.
be like me.
well, I wonder if that's one of the reasons why photo books are abandoned in the cart,
Yes.
is I think it would be if you're not a writer and it's just not something
Yes.
you like to do, I could really see that being a hang up. And you're right, you should just get it done. And in the end, the book is most of the time, the book is for you. Or it's for
Yes.
you and your
Yeah.
kids, and
And
your
your
kids would
family
rather,
and
your family would rather have the book with
hmm
minimal writing than
hmm
not have the book at all, I
Correct.
think.
That's the thing. And I looked back at old scrapbooks the other day and I found a cool little story about one of my sons that I am actually going to use in his wedding speech. He's getting married this summer. So I thought, wow, cool that I had actual text in this book because now I have this story that I would have
Yeah.
never remembered. So it definitely has a time and place, but you have to be practical. Everyone's time is so limited right now for everything
Yeah.
that if all you can manage to do is get your photos in a book so that they can be enjoyed with minimal text, then go ahead and do that. One of my best friends that I often create photo books with is a journaler to the max. She writes
Mm.
every night in an app, she keeps it all, and then when she works on her book, she just copies and pastes. For her, it works and it's beautiful and great. It's taken me a long time to be okay with the fact that hers can look like that and mine can look like this, and they're both equally
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
could also like I would hate for that to be the hang up for somebody to not get a
Yes.
book done. But if it's something that you really want and you're having trouble with it, or there's that tension between getting the book done and writing it. I mean, there's no reason why you can't do the book and then write it separately on something, print it on a nice card and
Yeah.
stick it in the back of the book, or
Yep.
use a
Yes.
QR code or like something,
Well,
Yeah.
and
because
I
otherwise that book
actually,
is never going to get done. If
right,
that's your hang up.
right.
For some people it's easy. My
Yes.
own books always have some captioning. When the boys were little, we used to, every night traveling, we would keep a journal and I would make them write it or talk, and those are in some of our books. As everybody's gotten older, I mean, I still included some on the last couple books that I've done, but it's mostly place names.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
for me, bird names are in all of my books. I don't really
Yes.
expect too many people listening to do that. But I want to remember what they are.
Yep.
And just a place name adds a fair bit of value
Mhm.
without taking much time at all. Decide on a single font, stick it in there, double
Yeah.
check the spelling of the
Yes.
Well,
name.
yeah, before you click checkout, you want to give yourself a few days of grace before you circle
Yeah.
back and review everything. But to that point, I think photo books that are from a travel are sometimes the easiest because you can
Yeah.
like do a bulleted list of all the places that you visited. And
Yes.
then that can be the heading for that section of your book. And
Yeah.
that works really well. If you can figure out to Shanna's point early on, what is the book going to be about? You could do an outline. Like you're thinking, okay, the first section of the book was when so and so was born, and the second section of or the second quarter around May is so and so's graduation, and then we had this wedding, and then
hmm
there's that, and you can just quickly do a bulleted list and include some names and places, and you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for
That
sure.
was really easy, doesn't it?
There are so many options and there are no
Yeah.
rules. So I have
Yeah.
one client right now who I'm creating a book for, and she just wants me to take her photos and put it in kind of by year or maybe 2 years per book, depending on the year. She wants me to just leave a little space below each book, or sorry, each photo, so she can physically handwrite in there
Mm.
her own detail. She knows she won't get it done before then. To go back and forth electronically is just not going to work. So that's what she wants. And then that way the kids have her handwriting too.
Yeah.
So if you feel better doing that, you can do it that way. There are just no rules. You have to do what works for you.
That's a great suggestion. Plus, you get
Yeah.
her handwriting.
Yeah.
Just double
Yeah,
check those pens before you start.
for sure.
Yeah.
For
Make
sure.
sure you get that no smear
I
permanent
have a
ink.
test book here that we
Oh
always
yeah.
test that kind of thing in. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I
for
love
sure.
that.
Yeah.
So let's get a little bit into design. Books are generally you pay by the page, right? So you start your book and pretty much every company says, here's your book, 15 or 20 or 5, however many pages are included, and then you can get extra pages. So I have found when designing and when people have asked me that there's this want of filling every page to the max
Mhm.
because you're
Mhm.
paying for it. But
Yes.
what is your thought on like how
Layout.
many photos to a
Yeah.
page you have? Do you have a rule of thumb? Do you use a lot of white space? Do you not like white space? Borders? Talk to us about all that.
Mhm. I definitely like white space. And it really, though, does depend on your theme. So if somebody is trying to get a full year of their family into one book and they simply want to get as many photos in there as they can, those pages are going to be full. And that's okay too. That's the nature of the book. But generally, yes, I do like white space. It draws attention to the photos that are sitting there. It gives your eye and your mind a little place to rest so that you can kind of think about the story that you're seeing and the people that you're seeing. Um, People always ask me, how many photos in a photo book? How many?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that, so a really general average, I would say, is 4 photos per page. General average, because that gives you 8 photos per spread on average, and you can still do something great. Like one of my favorite ways to design pages is a larger photo on the left that kind of
Mm.
ties into supporting photos on the right. And that could be, if it's a lay flat page, they could be spanning both pages, even with the one on the left still a little bit larger. But I think there's so many ways to do it. But that's a layout that I really love, and you can use that kind of template, rough template, so many ways.
Mm.
So if you kind of count on 4 per page, 8 per spread, it's going to give you a lot of design capabilities. If you're working on a book where you really need to pack them in, then you can go 9, 12 photos per page. And it
Yeah,
seems
almost
like
like
a lot.
not quite thumbnails, a little bit bigger,
Yeah.
but like inch by inch size. Yeah.
And if you do a 10 by 10 book, I mean, 12 by 12 obviously is larger too. 10 by 10, I would say, are 95% of the books that are printed that I have anything to do with are 10 by 10 in size. And you can fit 9 photos on a page at a decent size
Yeah.
that way. So, and really, like paper costs have gone up since
Yeah.
COVID. So the extra pages, generally the prices that you see on a website are for a 20-page book, generally ish.
Yeah.
22 in some cases, but generally 20. So every additional page, if you're talking lay flat, they can be $3 or $4 now for an additional page.
Yeah.
So if you get up to 50 or 100 or 150 pages, that's an expensive book now. So people definitely want to get as many photos in as they can. So design can be 1,000 different things. And you do want to leave a little bit of room for your eye to rest or your mind to rest. So when you're talking packing that many photos on a page, I generally don't suggest all the photos run to the edge and bleed off the page. You
Right.
create everything in maybe half an inch and leave that white border around the entire page just to give a little bit of breathing space. But yeah, there are so many different ways to do it. That would be my general approach to averages, I guess. Is that?
Yeah. When I've done photo books for weddings and or my like travels, sometimes there is that one page where you just want a bunch of photos to display on a page that kind of gives
Yes.
you the idea of what's going on at the wedding. So it could be people dancing and then the
Yes.
pictures of the
Yeah.
cake and
Yeah,
the entry signs and things like that that are not the center of attention, so to speak.
exactly. And then when you have a page like that with altogether, 20 photos on that spread, maybe the next page is one large photo of the wedding party. And
Exactly.
it's a good variety.
Yeah,
So,
you certainly don't want every page to be, something that you need a magnifying glass for.
Right. Yes.
It's also a good way to include photos that really aren't good photos in the sense of
Yes.
maybe they're not fully clear. Maybe
Hmm.
they're a little bit fuzzy or, the camera wasn't so good, but you still want to
Hmm.
include them.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
kind of a way. I don't want to say hide. You're not hiding them within the others, but you're allowing them to be there where they might
Hmm.
not otherwise make it. Because you don't
Hmm.
really want to have, one photo on a page that's out of focus. But if
Right.
Right.
it's a photo
Right.
that you really like,
Yeah.
that you want to include, that would be a good time to use one of those spreads.
Yes, and I will say I do watch people as they look through their books to see how they're reacting to things, and often when they get to pages like that, they turn the page and they say, "Oh, fun. Look at everybody dancing," if that's what it is. But their first
Hmm.
reaction is, "Oh, fun." And they check out all those photos.
Yeah.
So yeah, they definitely have a place. Mhm.
So what are the biggest layout mistakes? You work with a lot of DIY, which we're going to,
Mhm.
talk about coming up even more. But what are the
Mhm.
biggest layout mistakes that people make? And mistake, I mean sort of generally, because honestly, there's no real mistake that can be made. It's your
Right.
book, you do whatever you want. But what are some things that might help people create a better book?
Right. Yeah, I have this kind of one page tip sheet. I guess it's 10 tips to pro photo books, which I can give you a link to that if people want to download it. But it's basically
Yeah.
the 10 things that if people stay consistent with these things, then your book will just look so much more professional than, and it's things like spacing, consistency in the spacing between your photos, or aligning things on your page. And that doesn't mean everything's in one straight line. It just means that the things that are, close to this line are actually lined up. And then you might have
Mm.
other elements, but the bottoms of those photos are all lined up, not off, just by a tiny bit. Fonts is another one, staying consistent in your font use and your font sizing. Whether you're using borders or no borders, whether you're using square corners or rounded corners, there are all these sorts of pieces that if you stay consistent through your entire book, the level of it will
Mm.
just up 10
Yeah.
times.
And one of the things I didn't hear you say yet is resolution on the images.
Yes, and yes, although this comes back to what I said before, where I am more in for the photo that holds the memory over the perfectly technical photo. So if you have the option between a few photos and one of them is much better lighting and everything's situated better, 100% use that one. Or if you're getting photos from somebody, say you took a trip with, you want to make sure you obtain those photos in the correct way, not through Facebook or,
Yeah.
WhatsApp or something. You want to get the high resolution images for sure. But I really feel that people need to use the photos that are important to them and that hold the stories, even if they're not perfect photos.
Yes, but
Yeah.
if they're not good quality, you can't certainly use it as a really big photo on a page because
Yeah,
your design tool is probably going to bark at you.
right. Yes, you'd want to make that one a small, for sure, a smaller photo. There are definitely ways to work. There was one photo book project I had to do for somebody, and they had lost a bunch of photos, which is really
Oh
sad.
no.
And the only thing they could do was retrieve some of them from Facebook. And we all
Mm.
know that pulling photos from Facebook, you end up with low resolution images.
Yep.
That's what social media does to your photos. So in that case, it was a book full of small photos. And that's all that it could be, but the memories were still there and we did what we could with them. But for sure, if you have a photo that's not as fantastic, then you just make it a little smaller on that page. And I will say the other thing that I see that people sort of something that maybe they don't realize if they're new to photo books is the gutter space. Like respecting that gutter, which is the where the two pages come together in the photo
Hmm.
book. So if you're doing a lay flat style book, it's much easier. Anything can cross that gutter except a face. It can be a shoulder, a leg, it doesn't matter, just maybe not right across their face because there'll be a slight crease or a slight separation depending on the type of paper. But if you are using standard pages, so they're not sitting flat when the book is open, then you really need to be aware of you don't want a photo where somebody is on the far side of that and their face is right in the gutter. There's going to
Yeah,
be a small space that's going to be hidden. So those
that's a
I
great
say,
tip. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
inconsistency for sure. And then the gutter space. Those would be the big ones.
We'll be sure to get a link to that
Yes,
tip
the
sheet.
download. I'll give you the,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I'll
we
give
can
you that.
include
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
let's talk about you have a YouTube channel, and when I was looking through it, you had one video that I thought was really, really amazing. I forget what it's called. Actually, I probably have that here, but it
Is
was
that,
about the book about, say you have always wanted to have those, those books every year for your family, and we've all run into so many people that really wanted those and never did it, and now they feel guilty and they
mhm.
just want to go back to the beginning and start. But you had a video about, you know what? Why don't you take all the years and put them into one?
Yeah.
And you walk through step by step, and it's so smart. And I feel like for anybody out there who feels that guilt or had always wanted
Mhm.
those books and just didn't do it because it seems like so much work, that this is for them. Can you talk about this a little bit? And we'll put the link to that video, your YouTube
Sure.
video also in so that people can watch the whole thing because you can't go through it all right now. But can you
Yeah.
give us sort of the gist of
Yeah.
what I'm talking about,
Yes. So
and how to do it?
the video is called something like fitting 18 years in one book or something. I actually can't
Yeah,
remember the
it's
exact title
hold
of it
on.
either,
It's
but
okay, here it is. It's Capture a Lifetime Creating a Timeless Photo Book Spanning Years. So that's the title. We
okay.
will put the link in the thing so
Yeah.
you don't have to
The
remember
That is a
long
that.
title.
title.
But yeah, I know. But
And I
talk
try to
about
keep,
because it's such a great idea. I mean, I was thinking about once my kids were 2 or 3, I didn't make those books anymore. And honestly, I don't feel any guilt about not, and it's just not something that was of great interest to me. I've always done travel books, but when I saw that video, I was thinking, you know what? That would be a really fun idea. I've got a kid graduating college. It would be really fun to put
yes.
that together. And luckily, he doesn't
Yeah.
listen, so he doesn't know that's
So he
coming.
won't know that's
He won't.
coming.
He won't know. But t tell us about it.
Yeah, so that video and all my videos on there are fairly short. Like I think that one's under 10 minutes. So it's not like you have to sign up for this,
Mhm.
2-hour tutorial or whatever. Um, but yeah, that's a challenge that a lot of people face is I've got all these years to make up for. And first the time factor, but then also the cost. If they don't have time for it, the cost of having that many custom books made is incredibly
Yeah.
high. So yeah, there are no rules. I had one client in the fall who wanted a book for each of her kids for Christmas. One was 14, one was 17, and one was 21. And it didn't matter. This one had 14 years in her book. This one had 21 years in his book. It doesn't matter. But the basic idea behind that video is looking at your project and deciding, okay, do I have a budget for this? How big of a book can I create? How many pages do I want to put in this book? And then you work backwards. You say, okay, I have 50 pages to work with. I have 20 years to cover. Break that down by how many months and how many photos do I look for per month. And the video will walk you through how to do that. But it basically brings you to the point where you say, okay, now when I go through photos for this child, I can choose 6 photos for each year of his life. And that seems really hard, but when you start to scroll through your photos, you'll think, okay, and again, you might first come up with 15 of them, and then you need to look through that batch again and you can say, okay, no, I'm going to whittle that down to these 6 photos for the first year of his life. And then the same for the second year and the same for the third year. And then it just makes it a manageable project. Because if you just start scrolling through a lifetime worth of photos, I mean, you'll end up with 5,000. You won't, there's no way that you'll get down to 100 or 200 photos. So, yeah, it'll walk you through the math of how old is your child or how many years do you want to cover and to break that down, decide your number of pages and work your way backwards to find out, okay, I need to concentrate on 1 photo a month of this year, 1 photo a month of this year, whatever your number ends up being.
Mhm.
But then when you actually tackle the photos, it's manageable.
While you're talking, it re sort of reminds me of when someone comes to me and they need a memorial video.
Yep. Same
It's
sort of
like,
thing.
yeah, it's the same concept. How am I
Yep.
going to whittle down someone's life and, put it on screen,
Yeah.
after 80 years or something?
Yes. Yeah. It's really
So,
hard.
and the
Yeah.
video, most people try to shoot for 12-minute videos, somewhere in that range, 12 to 15. you can only have about 150 photos if you're going to
Mhm.
leave them on the screen long enough to see them well. So again, that same conundrum is
Mhm.
there. And yeah, so start early by favoriting your favorite photos throughout, your family. I think that's the number one key because then you
Yeah.
can go back and, see all the favorites based on person or, yeah, location.
Yeah, for sure.
I just thought this video was so smart because it does tackle this issue in a very
Calculating it.
straightforward, and
Hmm.
if you have this many photos, you can break it down even per month. And
Mhm.
then you can just search your phone for, January of 2007.
Yeah.
Okay, I get to pick one photo or
Yeah.
two photos, and it just makes it doable.
It makes it manageable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And, I love the idea. I love memorial videos and things. I think they're beautiful, but wouldn't it be great if you had that for the actual person that you are
Before they
celebrating
left.
Mm.
before they left so that they could
Mhm.
see it? I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
That's what my thought was.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
just I mean, when I saw that, I have made many books. My photos are like all of those things, but even that, like creating a book for, a 22-year-old who's about to
Yeah.
graduate is not necessarily daunting, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's going to take so much work. But there was something about watching you break down the math
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I
You just
really think anybody listening who has any desire to make a book like that should watch your video because it makes it fairly simple. And with this kind of book, I think once you do that and you pick your 60 or 100 or however many photos you end
yeah.
up with, the book is quite easy to make at that point,
Yes.
especially a book like this, which is most likely going to be chronological.
Yes.
There could be some subject areas, like if they played sports or this or that, but generally chronological. And
Yeah.
the chronological is the easiest kind of book to make.
Yes. Yeah. Doesn't require a ton of text unless you want to,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
you can put the life together and it's pretty clear. This is Christmas
Yeah.
that year. This is when he got his license. This is, you can put it all together, but it really comes down to like people think that the actual design of the photo book is the hardest part, but really it's the work that comes before
Mhm.
it, getting the photos prepped, and then once you're ready to put those in a book, it's not as daunting. You just
Yeah.
have to really take a few minutes to break it down. And then I tell people just have a piece of paper that you go to. And when you have your coffee in the morning, you open up your phone, you look at your piece of paper, and you can say, okay, I'm in 2006 right now. Go to January and pick your photo. Go to February, pick your photo. And in 10 years, or sorry, 10 minutes, you have that year taken care of.
10 years.
In 10 minutes,
Hope
your
not.
coffee's
Hope
done.
not. Yeah.
And you have that year selected. Write it on your list and move on until tomorrow. You
Yeah.
don't have to spend hours and hours going through thousands of photos. You can break it down. It's all about practicality, otherwise it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I love that. Now, what about towards the end of, I think it was end of last year, beginning of this year, you launched a DIY program to help people do this. So,
Yes.
what if somebody is out there and they're thinking, okay, I love this idea, but I need some accountability, I need some help. Tell us about is it Ginger Snap Studio? Is that what you
Yeah,
call
it's
it?
called Ginger Snap
Tell us
Studio.
about that.
Yeah, so I'm so excited about this. It started in November. And so basically I have Ginger Snap Studio is my consistent it's a membership space accountability group that you would join. We meet once a month for 90 minutes and I teach a mini masterclass about something related to photo books at each session. And then there's time for questions and discussion and there's the in between the community space where people can share their ideas or their whatever else is going on, their questions. I do a lot of tech support, obviously, with this. We go through in my main studio group, there's three platforms that I kind of teach on or show so that people can see how different programs or platforms work. Talk a lot about photo book printing in our group this past Wednesday. We had the owner of Picto, who's a print company. It's a print company out of Toronto here. The owner of Picto joined us and talked to our membership about what happens behind the scenes with the photo book. So that was really interesting. So
That's fun.
yeah, so I have the study studio group that happens month after month. And then throughout the year, I have focus groups that pop up. So in May, I'm starting a travel album group. In the fall, I'm doing a pet album. So and those will be shorter term projects.
Mhm.
So those pop up throughout the year. We started a year in the life book in January. So I'm working through 2026 with the group that's in there now. So by the end of December, their 2026 album will be ready to print. So yeah, it's just a space where you can get design tips and technical support and just learn all the things there is to learn, workflow, how to get your photos into your photo book project, and anything about photo books. So it's a really fun space for anybody who, yeah, needs some dedicated time each month and maybe just needs a little bit of support to work
Mhm.
through things. So
I think it's a wonderful idea for a coaching membership. Yeah,
yeah,
because so
Yeah.
many people need hand holding a little bit. Maybe
yeah,
they're unfamiliar with the tools that the
Mhm.
photo book software offers, because that can
yeah,
be confusing because they're all so different between manufacturers. And
yes.
then, do you have a good list between, so if your clients are coming from the US to recommend US printers, how do you do that?
Yeah, so in the studio group, I have people across US and Canada, which is fun. So one of the companies that I talk about is Picto because it's Canadian. One I talk about is Mixbook because it's available to everybody, and I find it to be so user friendly.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I'm actually teaching a lot in right now is Canva because that
Mm.
gives people all sorts of printing options.
Oh,
And then
cool.
and there are other benefits to Canva like you own your design as opposed to your design is, you know, mysteriously living on the photo book site server until they decide to delete it sort of thing. So there's pros and cons to all of them, but I do specifically teach on Mixbook, Picto, and Canva as of now. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a great idea because I find one, you get the technical help, like
Yeah.
Susan mentioned too, but you also just get some accountability.
Yes.
If you want to
Yeah.
get this thing done, and
Yeah.
if you have to show up every month, you don't want
Yeah.
to show up not having done anything. But if you haven't done anything, then during your session is the
Yeah.
time that you can set aside and you can get it done.
Yeah, they
So,
can work on things. And I try to give
yeah.
them a goal or two for each month. At the very beginning of a project, okay, by next month, you need to have your cover photo chosen
Yeah.
and your opening page photo and those sorts of things, just to say, okay, by next month, you need to choose your two fonts, your more
Mhm.
flair design, like a creative font and a standard font, like those sorts of things. So, yeah, really try to help them actually move forward.
I love that. And we'll put a link to that also. I'm taking note of all the links that we need to put in our show notes.
Yeah.
I love that. So we're getting it kind of towards the end. So one last question. So what is the favorite photo book that you have designed for yourself, for your family? What's your favorite one?
Oh, for my
Or
family.
for you or your family?
Oh.
Yes.
It's that's a hard question. That's a really hard question.
I know. That's
It's
why I
like
asked
picking your
it.
favorite kid, right?
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Oh,
Yeah, the
that's a
photo
really
books
hard
don't have
question.
feelings, so it's okay. You can choose one over the other.
Yeah. When people ask me that question, what's kind of one of the most favorite books I've designed? I would say it's one that wasn't for my family, but it was for a client, and it was a lady kind of around my age, and her mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
So they asked all kinds of family and friends to write letters to her mother. And so
Aw,
we took all of these letters and we compiled them into a book. And some came digitally, so they were typed out. But then whenever I could scan their handwriting, I scanned that in, and there were pictures together with each person, and it was a big book, and it was just so packed full of the best memories that is like when you look at a book like that, you just think that is so priceless. Like,
absolutely.
sure, for my family, we have all these, great holiday books and the day-to-day books. I love looking at those. I did one for my mom for her kind of life growing up, and they're all good in their own way. But that's the one book that always sticks out in my mind the most, I would say, because it was just so special. And she was at a point when she received it where she could still read everything and understand everything and really grasp it. And then, for the years that followed, whatever it could be to her, that's what it was for her. But
Right.
it was a great compilation of all the relationships that she had kind of nurtured
That
over.
is such a
So,
great idea.
Yeah.
It was
And
a
it's
really,
great for the
really cool.
family too, right? You know, it's
Yes.
not just to be enjoyed by her, I would
Yeah, they
think.
Right.
have that forever now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So that
I
was
love
Yeah.
one of my
that.
favorites. Yeah.
And when someone back to like the memorial books or the memorial videos, when someone passes, you really don't know their connections and outreach in the community. And
Mhm.
so for you to, do that before someone passes and have somebody be recognized in that way in a book would be awesome. Yeah.
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 Very special.
I love
Very
there's
special.
so many different things that would
Yes.
make good photo books.
And this can be
It's-
anything. Like if you have a
Yeah.
fun weekend with your family, even if it's around home, grab 20
Yeah.
photos from the weekend and pop it in a little mini book, a 6 by 6, and you have a fun memory from your
Yeah.
weekend. It doesn't have to be these big, massive things. It can be a small, little, tiny, soft cover, inexpensive book with 20 photos in it, and it can be
Yeah.
fantastic. So it doesn't have to be over the top for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I would also say, keep digital copies of those. So I went back, I think
Mm.
I've mentioned this before, but I went back and made scans of all of the old photo books that we have, and we have quite a few. And
Mhm.
some of these were not made from digital. They did have the actual photos on the page, and we scanned all of them. And I have found
Yeah.
that my kids, who are roughly the same ages as yours,
Mhm.
they're older now. They're not in the house, so they don't have them to flip through. And nor do they want them, at least not for a while. They don't have space,
Yeah.
but they like having that digital
Mhm.
copy. They
Mhm.
actually go back to that. I've kind of beat it into them where it is so that they can go find them. But it's nice to have, right?
Yes.
And then if something happens to the actual book, all of my books I have one copy and they sit in my house. And if something happens to my house, they're gone. Yes, I can go order one. Well,
Mhm.
not the old ones, actually, but newer ones. I could reorder them, but I have them digitally. And so,
Mhm.
like, if they're designing in Canva, it's very
Mhm.
easy to keep those copies. And I would
Yeah.
say put those copies right in your digital photo library
Yeah,
too.
and I kind of have two thoughts on that. So some photo book companies, after you place an order, you can request then to get
Yeah.
like a PDF or a digital copy of your book.
Yeah.
You probably have to pay something for it. I think more and more the companies are offering this, so that could be
Yeah.
something that you look into with the company that you are going to print with, or maybe to consider who you want to print with. And then my other thought on what you were saying is I always recommend to people have a space in your living room or somewhere where you have a photo book and you change it out once a month.
Yes.
So next month, put a different photo book out there. And my kids too, two boy like young tw or early 20 boys
Yeah.
who aren't naturally into that sort of thing. When there's a new book out there, they pick it up and they look through it.
Yeah,
So
mine do too. Or any guests in the house, or
yeah,
me. I
yeah,
do that too. I have a coffee table in our family room, and I have another little table to the side, and to the side it has some shelves under it, and all of the books are sort of stacked up
yeah,
there. And I don't know if it's once a month, but I do have one or two of them sitting right out on the
yeah.
coffee table, and
It's very
I look through
important.
them
Yeah,
sometimes, but everybody does. And it's nice. They're getting used.
yeah,
They shouldn't just sit on a shelf.
exactly.
So yeah,
That's
that's
the
a good
goal.
tip. I love that. I love that tip.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it, but it's something that I do too.
Yeah, you're doing
So
it subconsciously or
yeah.
whatever. But yes, it's a
Well, a
good,
lot of my books have animals on the cover, so I like to keep the animals out there. But yeah, but I did pull one out the other day because the kids are coming home next week, and I actually just swapped out the book, and I put one out from like 2010, I think. It's one of the earlier travel ones that we have, and I stuck it on there. Just one, I want to see if they notice.
yeah.
But two, my younger one is going to be studying abroad in Europe all next year. And so this was
Mm.
a book where we were in London and Paris, and they're all like this big, the kids. And I was curious to see if he actually looks through it and has
Yes.
anything to say, you know. It's kind of fun.
That'll
It
be
is
fun.
fun. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Shanna.
Thank you for
This
having
was
me.
so great. We wanted to do this two-part thing. So last month's, so the March 1 episode, we had Isabelle Dervaux on here, and we asked her a lot of the similar questions. And some of the answers between you guys are similar, and some of them are, they offshoot a little, and some are quite different.
Yeah.
So I love there are no rights and wrongs
Right.
here. The
Yeah.
right is, can you get it done? then you're
Doing what
doing
works
something
for
right.
you. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. And so I love being able to give those different perspectives. And I
Mhm.
hope that our listeners will pick something up there as well.
Great. Yes. Well, thank you. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you'll find all of Shanna's information on our resource page as per usual. And we thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thank
Yep.
you. See you later.
All right.
All right. Wow. That was a great, compare and contrast. That's what I was looking at. Every time she would say something, sometimes my mind would just hop right over to the previous conversation and go, oh, well, that's interesting because
Yeah.
Isabel would say something different or her approach was slightly different, or sometimes they were in tandem.
Yeah. And I do think, I mean, the best photo book is the one you actually make.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
There are no bad photo books. And so I do think people tend to get hung up on the process. It's going to take too long. I don't know where to start. I've got way too many photos. How do I choose? And so she's very practical and gave some really good tips. And really, you just sit down and do it and you break it into chunks, like she said. That's why I think I really liked that video that she has, is because
Yeah.
it takes something that seems kind of amorphous and hard to do and it brings in math and just makes it tangible. And she has
Yes.
some great tips because really you just want to get it done. If you want to make a book, we want you to finish your book. We don't want it sitting in the cart where you're going to get 15 reminders every other day from whatever company you were using saying,
Oh,
"You
and
left
that's a
this
good
here.
thing. I think we
Finish your
mentioned
book."
this. And that's another thing. I think we mentioned this on the previous podcast that a lot of, if you sign up and you get emails from these companies and they give you an offer and you feel
Oh yeah.
pressured to try and get it done because they've got a sale going on, rest assured those
Oh
sales
yeah.
come on a regular
All the
basis.
time.
So don't feel pressured to try and get it done because of a simple sale.
Yeah, because you'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
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 Unless that's the only way that's going to push you to get it done, in which case, go ahead and do it
Yes.
and use that as a deadline. But yeah, that was super fun. So she has a lot of good links that we will add to the bottom of our resources page so you can find them. Her tip sheet
Yep.
and her Ginger Snap Studio membership and how to connect with her will all be there.
Yeah.
And I hope everybody learned something.
Yeah. This was great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks again, Allison.
All
Another
right.
great
Have an
podcast.
amazing cruise.
Oh, I'm so
I can't
excited.
wait to hear about it. Take
It's
lots of photos and send me some.
yes, I will. It's actually kind of hard to work on client projects now between now and the time I leave. So I really have to get you know uh
Get focused.
focused and do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
starting to pack, put out my flip-flops and my swimsuit. Yeah.
All right. Well, send me some photos. I can't wait to hear about it.
Yeah, it'll be great.
All
All
right.
right, my friend.
Until next time.
Until next time. That's it for our show today. Remember, you can find this episode on all of your favorite podcast apps. Be sure to click follow so you can stay up to date with the latest in photo organizing. We'll catch you next month.